On the news, Amnesty International alleges #EndSARS protesters still detained since 2020. Supreme Court to hear Abgas case seeking Uzodinma's sack 3 years later. And INEC to deploy 46,084 staff for Imo, Bayelsa and Kogi governorship elections. It's a pleasure to have you join us on News Now. I am Simisola Adigun. It's been 3 years since the decentralized social movement and a series of mass protests against police brutality in Nigeria, also known as EndSARS, took Nigeria by storm. This morning at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos, a location that has become the signpost of the protests, some young people are seen gathering for a procession while a team of policemen were on ground to forestall any breakdown of law and order. The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Idowu Owohunwa, visited the scene to assess the area and ensure that personnel were deployed to the toll gate area managed the activities of those performing the memorial procession. Speaking to newsmen, he expresses his satisfaction with the conduct of the personnel on ground as well as those commemorating the day with the procession.
I think part of the object of my on-the-scene visit is to actually assess the deployment and the conduct of the officers deployed on this assignment across the various identified centers. And so far, as you can see, the deployment is on point and in line with their brief. All the policemen from the feedback I've received so far have been very civil, professional, and respectful of the rights and the space of both the protesters and the wider citizens. So I think as the Commissioner of Police, I'm very, very impressed, and I commend their sacrifice and their efforts while encouraging them to sustain it in the interest of the public good. Well, in planning an operation of this nature, we anticipate. So we do not essentially put all our operational eggs in one basket. So we are securing the entire Lagos public space.
Still on the #EndSARS protest, Amnesty International has alleged that a total of 15 protesters arrested in 2020 are still being unlawfully detained 3 years after the protest. According to a statement released in commemoration of the 3rd anniversary of the protest, Amnesty International says the majority of the protesters are in Kirikiri Medium Correctional Center and Ikoyi Medium Security Correctional Center in Lagos without trial. Amnesty also alleged that Nigerian authorities have filed trumped-up charges including theft, arson, possession of unlawful firearms and murder against many of the protesters, adding that some of those detained alleged that they had been subjected to torture. It says despite consistent claims of carrying out comprehensive police reforms in the aftermath of the #EndSARS protest, Nigeria's police continue to routinely commit violations of human rights, including extrajudicial killings, harassment, arbitrary detention, and extortion with almost absolute impunity. Let's discuss the impact of the #EndSARS protest 3 years after. Michael Adaramoye, the National Coordinator, Youth Rights Campaign, is my guest on the news. Thank you for your time, Michael. Now, what do you think that young people have been able to achieve with the movement 3 years after?
Well, thank you very much. I think to start with, 3 years after, if we look back at what has been achieved, I think we achieved something great, because the EndSARS movement is one of the most historic mass movements in the recent history of Nigeria. So young people have been able to, with that movement, demonstrate that they can rise up and say no to their oppressors, that they can say no to intimidation, to harassment, and every form of oppression that they've suffered in the hands of the Nigerian ruling class. So this is service, one of the greatest achievements of the EndSARS. And you can see these days now, you hold protests and you see police who are there trying to tell you that they are there to guide you. Before the EndSARS, the story used to be a bit different, because even when you call protest, you realize police officers have been there even before you to ensure that you did not hold such protests. But look at what happened today. People are able to gather at least and express their mind. We did not arrive at this magically. It was the movement, it was the action, political action of young people to say no to police brutality that at least make us have these little gains that we can point out.
All right, Michael, if you can hear me, looking at the loss of lives and destruction of property at that time, do you think lessons have been learned? Unfortunately, we lost Michael there, National Coordinator, Youth Rights Campaign. Thank you for lending your thoughts. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it will deploy 46,084 ad hoc staff for the November 11 governorship poll in Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo states. The INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, disclosed this at a meeting with resident electoral commissioners in Abuja on Friday. Yakubu added that the 18 political parties participating in the governorship election would deploy 137,934 agents, made up of 130,093 polling and 7,841 collation agents.
While we are leaving no stone unturned in other areas of preparations for the governorship election, the Commission plans to deploy a total of 46,084 regular and ad hoc staff for the election. We have so far accredited 126 national and international organizations, collectively deploying 11,000 observers for the election. Although the portal for media accreditation closes on Tuesday, 24th October 2023, we have received applications from 80 media organizations seeking to deploy 1,203 personnel made up of journalists and their technical and support staff to report on the elections. The 18 political parties participating in the elections are deploying 137,934 agents made up of 130,093 polling and 7,841 collation agents. We are also finalizing arrangements for vehicles and boats for land and maritime movement of personnel and materials.
Ahead of the November 11 gubernatorial election in Kogi State, a coalition of Kogi East Patriotic Association has warned politicians to refrain from perpetrating violence and give room for a peaceful election. Speaking on Friday at a World Press Conference in Kogi State over the rising security threats and attacks in the state, convener of Kwepa, Abdulkadir Ojonugwa, lamented that violence is taking the center stage as the state continues to prepare for the election. He also made reference to the senior police officer who was almost lynched allegedly by suspected thugs of politicians in the state. Ojonugwa calls on the Nigeria police to swiftly arrest all individuals who were involved in the dastardly act.
It is our desire to see a peaceful and credible election in our dear state. We have been monitoring the development in the state since the beginning of the campaign for the governorship election, and the trend of campaign of ethnic diversion and violence that had escaped our attention. Our sense of urgency in arranging this emergency press conference was further heightened by the violence we witnessed yesterday in Kogi State, whereby a senior police officer was almost lynched, allegedly by the thugs of the governorship candidate of the Social Democratic Party under the Sparrow's claim that he was involved in an attack against the convoy of Mr. Murtala Ajaka. We call on the highest authorities of the police to swiftly arrest all individuals that were involved in that dastardly act.
The Supreme Court will on October 31 hear an application filed by the All Progressives Grand Alliance APGA seeking to remove Hope Uzodinma from office as governor of Imo State. The hearing is coming 3 years after the motion was filed and less than a month to the 2023 governorship election in the state. APGA is contending that there ought to have been a fresh election in Imo after the Apex Court nullified the election of Emeka Ihedioha of the People's Democratic Party (PDP). The party revealed that the Apex Court had, in a separate judgment, declared that Uche Nwosu, who came second at the governorship poll that held in 2019, had dual nominations. Back home in Lagos, the coroner magistrate Bola Folarin Williams investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of the boy with a missing intestine Adebola Akin Bright has commenced its sitting on Friday. The state government had ordered the inquest following public outcry over the controversial death of Akin Bright in August at the Lagos State Teaching Hospital. During the proceeding, which is taking place at the Lagos State Magistrate Court in Ibutemeta, the coroner informed parties in the matter that the autopsy report is ready and will soon get to the court. The coroner then adjourned the matter to November 24 for further proceedings. Amid the crisis of illegal migration among Nigerian youths, the federal government and the government of the Netherlands have met to chart ways of tackling the trend and also chart ways to develop their capacities for national development. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation Betta Edu, who was joined by the European Union and representatives of 48 other countries in Hague, the Netherlands capital, made this known during her opening remarks at an event to discuss disturbing migration issues involving young people in Africa and the world. She describes as worrisome young Nigerians losing their lives in the Mediterranean Sea, all in a bid to migrate out of the country for greener pastures.
The JAPA syndrome, which refers to young, highly skilled workers and university graduates migrating in their numbers in search for better education, better paying jobs, and self-actualization in Europe and North America, has become a hot button topic, especially when you consider in 2022, diaspora remittance to Nigeria stood at $21.9 billion US. However, these young migrants are faced with diverse challenges in quest for new opportunities and avenues for expression, such as the danger of human trafficking, smuggling of migrants, exploitations in different forms, even organ harvesting and modern-day slavery. A recent survey of migrants in the United States indicated that almost 50% of migrants between the ages of 15 and 35 years of age surveyed had experienced some form of depression or psychological challenges. The thematic meeting, therefore, will provide a platform to deliberate on the challenges faced by young migrants, as well as celebrate the achievements and innovation of young migrants. This is an inclusive and diverse platform that will foster dialogue that will lead to meaningful steps and actions towards better youth representation and participation in migration policies development between member states, particularly with regards to education, employment, empowerment, knowledge transfer, innovation, and leadership.
A non-profit organization, the Center for Citizens with Disabilities, CCD, is reaching out to security formations and justice providers on the effect of shrinking civic space on people with disabilities. At a one-day training in Lagos, CDD sensitizes the participants on how to understand disability rights and foster inclusive civic participation. Correspondent Chidi Igwe was there and he filed in this report.
Disability is referenced in multiple parts of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially in the part relating to education, growth and employment, inequality, and accessibility of human settlements. These are rights of people with disabilities, which must be matched by an action plan for an inclusive society.
Government should actively protect, promote an environment in which persons with disabilities can effectively and fully participate in the conduct of public life without discrimination, non-governmental organization association concerned, when they promote these ideas or this advocacy point, they should not be stopped.
The National Disability Act should be strictly enforced because this act gives them full integration of persons with disability into the society. So there is right to employment opportunities, right to access public facilities, road transportation. It's all encompassing. So once we enforce this law, persons with disability will enjoy the benefits.
People with disabilities who have had to face diverse challenges offer continuous civic engagement that will alert society to the plight of people with special needs in the area of jobs and social amenities.
A lot of us who are graduates, who are seeking for job, are still roaming in the streets. And you know, when we are not empowered financially, we become a problem. Not problem as in, fighting or something. It will become a psychological thing.
The so-called cultural belief to the effect that disability amounts to inability is no longer the situation. People that are disabled are not productive, not because of a disability, but because of societal discrimination and lack of acceptance in the society. If they are accepted and they are not discriminated against, then they can be useful and contribute to the society as their able counterparts.
An assistant director with the Ministry of Justice in Lagos, who is a person with disability, says the judicial system will act more on enacting favorable policies as well as upholding the right of people with disabilities.
The law comes in, to make life more, livable for persons with special needs by providing necessary, enactments as contained in the Lagos State Special People's Law. The right to movement, it's a very ambivalent right because it affects the economic power of persons living with disability, and it gives a sense of belonging to them as well. It gives them the ability to be able to perform.
By the end of the day's training, representatives of various security formations and justice providers in Lagos State pledged to protect the right of people with disabilities, hence making living very comfortable for them.
It's time for a short break. What's coming up in the news? Israel bombs Greek Orthodox Gaza church, sheltering displaced people. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. A quick recap of our top stories. Amnesty International has alleged that a total of 15 protesters arrested in 2020 are still being detained unlawfully 3 years after the #EndSARS protest. According to a statement released in commemoration of the 3rd anniversary of the protest, Amnesty International says the majority of the protesters are in Kirikiri Medium Correctional Center and Ikoyi Medium Security Correctional Center in Lagos without trial. Amnesty also alleged that Nigerian authorities have filed trumped-up charges including theft, arson, possession of unlawful firearms and murder against many of the protesters, adding that some of those detained alleged that they had been subjected to torture. We also told you the Supreme Court will on October 31 hear an application filed by the All Progressives Grand Alliance APGA seeking to remove Hope Uzodinma from office as governor of Imo State. The hearing is coming 3 years after the motion was filed and less than a month to the 2023 governorship election in Imo State. APGA is contending that there ought to have been a fresh election in the state after the Apex Court nullified the election of Emeka Ihedioha of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Now, just in case you missed any of our news bulletins, and for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, or download our mobile app on Google Play Store and Huawei App Gallery. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. Welcome back. Tamilore Akinkwoli is on standby with business news. Over to you, Tamilore.
Thank you, Sami. Hello and welcome to Business News. Acting Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, has allayed fears being expressed by corporate organizations that the resolve of the FIRS to increase the country's tax to GDP ratio to 18% from 10.86 will lead to increase in taxes. In a statement, Adedeji said such resolve would not necessarily lead to an increase in taxes or introduction of new taxes, as the President Bola Tinubu-led administration was determined to create a wholesome environment for businesses to flourish. The chairman also promised to address issues and concerns such as multiplicity of taxes and duplication of tax oversight on corporate entities. And in order to improve upon its competitive edge in the African Continental Free Trade Area after initiative, Nigeria must boost its manufacturing sector. This was the agreement at the just concluded 51st Annual General Meeting of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, in Lagos. The keynote speaker at the event, former Finance Minister Olusegun Aganga, says that for Nigeria to be able to compete with developed countries, there's need to invest in infrastructure, innovation, skilled laborers, while addressing trade barriers. Our correspondent, Sydney Okafor, tells us more.
At the 51st Annual General Meeting of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, in Lagos, executives, members, dignitaries, and stakeholders in the manufacturing sector gathered in this hall to discuss strategies to improve the nation's manufacturing industry. The three-day MAN AGM exhibition book launch, which was organized to promote made-in-Nigerian goods, involved a critical discussion on how the government can prioritize the manufacturing sector in order to benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area (AFTA) and compete globally with other developing nations. President of MAN, Francis Moshioye, lamented the cost of manufacturing is rising daily owing to scarce and unavailable manufacturing input that continue to shrink profitability and threaten the existence of the critical sector of the economy.
MAN has been at the forefront of promoting and advancing the industrial development of our nation. It has become a matter of necessity and urgency to deepen our awareness of the imperative of AFTA. We need to develop the right strategies and concerted efforts to position our economy as the #1 manufacturing hub of the African economy.
In his third Adeola Odutola lecture, Olusegun Aganga, the former Minister of Finance, says African leaders and stakeholders must ensure that the After 2063 Master Plan for transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future is carried out in order to develop the continent.
Manufacturing plays a central role in the realization of this agenda. It is seen as a key driver of economic transformation and industrialization, capable of generating employment, fostering intra-African trade, technological advancement, and the reduction of poverty.
President Tinubu, who was represented by the Executive Secretary of the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, says his administration will set up initiatives to boost manufacturers' competitiveness, including the growth of the MSMEs, access to roads and finance, and electricity.
Our goal today from the government is to discuss the pivotal role of Nigeria in enhancing the manufacturers' competitiveness in Nigeria. Nigeria, as we all know, is the most populous nation on the African continent and its largest economy. So it plays a crucial role, especially when we talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area and Agreement.
In order for us to take full advantage of the opportunity presented by the AFTA, we must address the challenges that have beset. We are delighted in Lagos State that this investment is yielding the desired dividends as Lagos State continues to be the preferred destination for both local and foreign direct investment.
The association says the government must prioritize investment in infrastructure and power, combat insecurity and corruption, as well as introduce incentive policies that would make domestic production more attractive as against the importation of finished products. Sydney Okafo, TV360, Lagos.
We'll go on a break now and be back with Stock Market Report. The BST maintains a dominant reign on the floor of the local bourse as the last day of trading resulting in a 0.27 decrease in the all-share index. The market cap is now spared as it declined to 36.77 trillion naira. Negative market breadth seeing trading end to 20 decliners against 40 gainers. And speaking of losers, Cadbury Nigeria comes out with an end-of-day price depreciation of 10% at 12 naira 60 kobo per share, followed by Flour Mill Nigeria at 9.03%. At the end of the day's trading section on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, a total of 205 million units of shares valued at 6.3 billion naira exchange ended 4,986 deals. And a similar bearish sentiment is recorded globally on our select global stock, and that's the UK FTSE, US Dow Jones, and Japan's Nikkei, which all closed in the reds. And that's all on the business news and stock market review. Back to you, Simi, for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Jamilore. And on the global scene, an Israeli airstrike has killed and injured a large number of displaced people sheltering at a church compound in Gaza. This is according to the besieged Palestinian Enclave's Interior Ministry. The strike left a large number of martyrs and injured at the compound of the Greek Orthodox St. Porphyrius Church in Gaza City, the ministry said on Thursday. Gaza's Hamas-run government media office reported on Friday that 18 Christian Palestinians were among the dead. Witnesses say many injured people have been evacuated to the hospital. And in sports, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, has released the official schedule for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations Côte d'Ivoire 2023 following the successful draw held in Abidjan last week. The 34th edition of the biggest sports event on African soil will take place from January 13 to February 11, 2024 in Abidjan, Yamoussoukro, Bouaké, San Pedro and Korogo. The opening game will feature host Côte d'Ivoire and Guinea-Bissau on Saturday, January 13, 2024 at Alassane Ouattara Olympic Stadium of Ebimpe in Abidjan. Well, it's a wrap on the news on TV360 Nigeria. Thank you for staying with us. See you again next time.